What do you think are some of the things that you see that clients do in injury cases that screw their case up?
For the largest part, my sense is like you and I as lawyers, like we're driving the case, we're responsible for it, and we can do our job. So the question becomes like, at a point, are they interfering with our ability to do our job, or are they doing things that are going to cause us to have to answer, for them in some sort of context? One of the more things that I get nervous about is being public about the case, posting about the case, and making statements about the case. And the reason why is because any good defense lawyer will do their research, will do their homework before a deposition, and then when your client walks into a deposition, they have to explain what their posts are.
Hey there everyone, I'm Tom Bosworth, and this is the City of Brotherly Law. Welcome to Philly's Legal Pulse, where we chat with some of the city's and the country's best attorneys about what's really going on in our courts and our communities. Let's dive in and see what's brewing in the City of Brotherly Law.
Can you tell us, I know your background, but can you just try to actually tell people your background?
Like, truthfully?
Yeah.
So, I guess, where does it all begin? There was a closet. I was in an incubator. They shut the incubator off. No. Okay.
No, dude, that's too much.
That is too much.
It's just
all right.
Childhood trauma. Yeah. You have to keep that stuff.
Well, it's true. True story. At least that's what my mother tells me.
Didn't your mom shut the incubator off?
No, it was a nurse. It was malpractice.
Wait.
It was
for real?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why were you in an incubator?
I was premature. I was jaundiced. I still am. I feel like I still have that yellow.
I shouldn't laugh at. It's not funny.
It's not a big deal, Tom.
How premature were you?
I don't know. 36, 37 weeks. I don't know. I just made that up. I can't even say. I have no idea. That was in Phoenixville, anyway.
But why would a nurse shut off the incubator? Did you guys ever get into that?
Why would a nurse put an incubator with a bait in a closet? That's a true story. I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed.
So you were placed upon birth, you were placed in a closet by a nurse. Not a closet where a patient should be. I don't think any patient should be in a closet, but this wasn't
I think I was like a noisy baby. I'm still making noise, even into adulthood, but I think I was like a noisy baby, and she just had enough. She was like, I can't put him in the closet.
This is why we have a job. This is why you can't do that.
No. I don't think it happens anymore, though. I don't think nurses do that.
Do you think that's affected your ability to love and be loved? Or?
Of course. I mean, it put me in a position to be best friends with you. I mean, had I had a healthy childhood, I would have steered.
You wouldn't be here right now.
Steer clear from you. I grew up in a small town outside of Philadelphia. Called Phoenixville. Phoenixville was sort of a town that arose, I think, largely, a little after the Industrial Revolution. Huge steel mill that was built there that produced a ton of steel for all over the country, railroads, bridges, all of that. And I think with the sort of downfall of the steel industry in the United States, that impacted the Phoenix Iron Works, which basically closed up in the 60s, maybe 1960s, 1970s.
So what did people do after that? What was it?
They all became poor. The town had no money, and it fell into a state of disrepair, and just it wasn't great. And anybody who knows Phoenixville today, it's like this great downtown. They shut the streets first Fridays. It's a fun place to be, great restaurants. But before that, when I grew up, sort of it was starting to turn a leaf maybe around 2000, 2005 when I was leaving high school. Money being injected into the community. But a fun town to grow up in because we had the ruins of the steel mill, and there's rivers running through the town, and
that's cool.
Just a cool place to be, and close friendships. And growing up in a small town, like Lenox, how that is.
And then you went to LaSalle College in Philadelphia.
If we were truly friends, you would know. I actually graduated 03 from high school.
Okay.
I had this grand plan that I wanted so badly to go into the military. I think I'd idolized it as a kid, seeing movies and this and that. And I said, okay, I'm going to sign up. So I actually signed up after, like, at the end of high school.
For the military?
For the military.
What branch?
For the Army.
Okay.
I think it was the Army. Might have been the Air Force.
Did you did you have one of those recruiters that would...
I had a recruiter.
The recruiters are like... Yeah.
You know, and he pushed you all that stuff. And you're supposed to go to basic training one day. And that was like maybe, I don't know, like whatever it was, during the summer or something after high school. And I called the recruiter and I was like, hey, John, I'm not going to make it. I'm just not going to make it today. Like, because I was like, the war was kicking off and I think I got cold.
In Iraq.
Yeah, and I got cold feet. And I was like, it was 03. I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to college first. You know, and I still wanted to carry that out, but I was like, let me go to college. Because if you go to college, you can come in as an officer versus being enlisted. And I thought that would give me more opportunity. So he was like, I remember, he's like, oh, you're never going to get back into the military. You're done. Like, if you don't show up. And I didn't show up. So I took some time off because the way the semesters were, I couldn't enroll in college. So in January, I enrolled at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. And just general studies, whatever. And then I tried to get into the nursing program. Now, mind you, my whole life, horrible grades. Like, I was a horrible student.
Why?
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I do. I know why.
Well,
no, because you're intelligent. This is what bothers me about you. You're intelligent, but you're always dicking around. Like, you just gotta, like, apply yourself.
Oh, I was.
Well,
hold on though, because that went through 7th, 8th grade. 9th grade was horrendous because I went from parochial, like Catholic school, to public school, and it was a free for all. It was a free for all. Like, most of the friends that I had in Catholic school, they're real social. Like, they got into cliques and groups, and like I was not. Like, I didn't really get along, with many people in high school. Not for any particular reason, other than I wasn't in any friend group. So in 10th grade, I had a girlfriend, and she was really smart, and it was like, all of a sudden, I started getting good grades.
Well, she couldn't have been that smart.
Yeah, well, good point. But so I did well 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then when I was at Westchester, I did really well. But for whatever reason, I tried to get into the nursing program, and I could not. They would not let me into the nursing program. Even being a male, because you would think they would.
Because your grades were bad?
No, they were awesome. I had like a really high GPA at Westchester.
Did you kill somebody? I wouldn't answer that on camera. Well,
you're talking about
prior to your military experience. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I transferred to LaSalle, which is where I actually had siblings. My sister and brother went to LaSalle University, and I transferred right into their nursing program. Graduated 08. When I graduated
from college.
Yeah, from undergrad.
And then what'd you do?
I started working for a urologic surgeon at Mainline Health here in the Philadelphia area. And I also worked for, an old folks home, basically, on an acute care floor. And we had, we had young folks, older folks, really disabled folks, catastrophic injury type folks, people who've been in car accidents, motorcycle accidents, and a lot of the things that you and we see today in our practice. So I was doing that sort of long-term care stuff, and I did that until I sparked that interest again and started talking to an Air Force recruiter.
When did you do that?
2010.
So you'd been to being a nurse a couple years.
I was a couple years out.
And then how did that go with the Air Force?
Got me right in. Went to officer training school.
Where?
Down in Alabama.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's like the deep south.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Okay. What did that entail?
It's basically like a combination between classroom work and physical stuff. So and they really emphasize a lot of teamwork, which, obviously. It's
not always what you see in law firms. Teamwork.
No.
I don't think people understand that. Some of the most toxic competitiveness can exist within a law firm as opposed to between the lawyer fighting the other lawyer on the
I
other
think
side.
there is no greater breeding ground than a successful personal injury like plaintiff's firm for toxicity. It's pretty horrendous because when you inject money into anything and people think they're and the higher ups incentivize competitiveness, then there's that breeds that sort of nasty environment.
We own a catastrophic injury firm, so how do we? I mean, maybe it's a rhetorical question, but how do we? I mean, I have ideas in my mind as to what we want to do different or try to do different, but like, how do you? Because we are competitive. I mean, let's face it, we're at the top of the food chain in terms of the results that we get with all But how do we do that and be competitive, but also not have a firm that's run by toxicity and people scrambling to try to gather as many nuts as they can and like a squirrel.
Well, I think like you said, it really starts from the top down. And it's funny, like now that we're getting into hiring more paralegals, assistants, lawyers, and let's just talk about the lawyers. I have like injected it even like yesterday we interviewed somebody and I talk about it up front, openly and honestly, because I think as a new lawyer, when you come into the practice, you don't really know what to expect. You do expect some competitiveness. You expect you're going to work hard. There's going to be some long hours. You have to learn your job, all of that. But I talk openly, and even yesterday I did, about like we broke off and we're doing what we want to do because we want to have a different environment. And I really couch it in this idea and framework of teamwork, right? We're always accessible, right? And not only are we always accessible, but you, the associate attorneys, they all have access to one another. You guys should all be working together collectively to produce good results. Because when we produce good results, no matter who's doing it individually, if it's done as a team, A, it's going to be better results, and B, everybody's going to benefit and profit. So I think early on, not breeding that sort of competitive environment, I think talking about it openly allays some of those concerns that new lawyers have so that they don't even get stuck into that bad rut of like being competitive with their coworkers. And you know how it is. It's like covert. It's like the appearance of covert competitiveness, but in your face, everybody's so nice and likable, but behind your back, it's nasty.
That's why I don't do very well in those covert subliminal thing. I mean, you wrestled growing up.
It wasn't that great, but
it doesn't matter.
It was
You
okay.
wrestled. I played baseball in high school and then some in college. Basketball. I mean, I imagine I didn't wrestle. I imagine it's the same though. When you're on a wrestling team or whatever, you have teammates and it's sort of just blunt. Like you hold each other up. You also hold each other accountable, but you don't really have time if you're a good team or you want to win. You don't have time to engage in like this like keyboard warrior stuff that we deal with lawyers every day. I mean, your teammate screws up, you're in their face. You love them.
Yeah.
Then on the ride home on the school bus, you guys are fine. You might sleep over their house. Law firms are so. Do you know what I mean? Like
my thing on that is like, and what I sort of also say is like, you have one life. Like it's one life. You really want to like spend your life like,
going after other lawyers.
Nasty, being nasty with people, going after lawyers, money this, money that. No, I want people to like working here because they like what we do, they like the work, they enjoy the environment. And the environment thing is something that you and I obviously we really pronounce in sort of our practice, is we want it to be positive and not that not the nastiness that can it's with all the big law firms. It's there. I've been there. I've been to 2 big law firms. I've seen it. I know how it works.
Well, I want to
also. It's not really fun because everybody thinks you don't know. And like it's so obvious like what people are doing to be competitive with one another, but at the same time they think they're like hiding it from you. And it's like you're not getting it over on me. Like, I know.
So you did basic training, or is it different?
It's similar. Basic, for if anybody's listening to the podcast and I say officer training school is the same as basic training, they'll have a fit.
So it's not.
It's not exactly the same thing. I think basic training is a little more in your face, yelling at you, and officer training school is a little backed off of that, and a little more. There's a little more cerebral academic component to it than basic training. So
when you finished your training, what was your first job, so to speak, in the military?
My first job and my only duty station, really, like permanent duty station, as they say, was down at Andrews Air Force Base, which is it's a joint naval and Air Force base.
Where's that?
That's down like around D.C. It's technically in Maryland, but it's around D.C. And Andrews is known for, obviously, where all the politicians, the president, everybody takes off from. Air Force One is there, the flight line, etc. And also there's a hospital called Malcolm Grow Medical Center. I don't know if that's what it's still called, but Malcolm Grow Medical Center was one of the places, and really the preeminent place, where planes coming from overseas during the war would first land. It was a hub. So
when you were there?
When I was there. And so my first job was in what they called a staging facility.
What's that?
It was called the ASF. So basically, airplane lands, we go out to the flight line, get all the patients off the airplane. There's different categories, levels of patients. You have the real critically injured, and then you have less critically injured.
Are these all these
wounded warriors?
People coming from overseas.
Wounded warriors coming from overseas.
Landing there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that has to do with the movement of patients through the theater of war. So you get injured in Afghanistan, you go, from the front lines to a larger base in Afghanistan, to a base in Germany, and then, you'll pawn hop over to the United States, typically landing at Andrews Air Force Base. You have vented patients, every injury you can think of, folks on this plane. And the planes are interesting because there's it's like a plane and everybody's lined up on the side, and then on the inside there's an ICU, and these are C-17s or C-130 aircrafts. And so the range of patients and injured folks. And the real injured folks would basically hop off, get in an ambulance, go to Wateree Medical Center. Some of the less injured folks, but seriously injured people, amputations, etc., would stay at Andrews Air Force Base on my unit. Some folks then would just take a plane the next day down south, out west, or up north. So basically, it's just distributing the patients from the theater of war and then getting them back to the States and getting them back to wherever their duty station is, right? Where their duty station is in the United States. So I was at Andrews Air Force Base on that unit and handled all wounded warriors. That was my first job.
So you're a nurse, former military veteran, and a lawyer. So I think you have vast human experience. What do you think are some of the things that you see that clients do in injury cases that screw their case up? Was there one main thing, or do you feel like it's...
Well, so for the largest part, my sense is you and I as lawyers, we're driving the case, we're responsible for it, and we can do our job. So the question becomes at a point, are they interfering with our ability to do our job, or are they doing things that are going to cause us to have to answer, for them in some sort of context? One of the more things that I get nervous about is being public about the case, posting about the case, and making statements about the case. And the reason why is because any good defense lawyer will do their research, will do their homework before a deposition, and then when your client walks into a deposition, they have to explain what their posts are. And the danger with that is that the clients, they don't understand the fine dance and the interplay between negligence, causation, and damages, and so they may be highlighting a portion of the case that isn't as important, or maybe is a polar opposite of what our position is, And that, of course, then they have to answer for it at a deposition, and then it's a matter of record that can be talked about at trial. And I think it has the ability to inject confusion of issues into the jury's mind, right? At the end of the day, that's what it's about, the jury and what they think and what they hear.
So do you tell clients like no posting?
I don't do that, but I have fairly long conversations with clients. I instruct them. I tell them what their case is about. I talk to them about what we believe occurred. If they bring up a point like...
Here's my problem with not what you're saying, but like there's so many lawyers that have this like no social media, no posting, very binary viewpoint. And the problem I think with that is like there's a utility to social media in this day and age. There's a utility in a certain case, not every case, in exposing or illuminating a certain type of conduct or some defendant. I mean, we have that case right now with Aubrey Wu, a missing 14-year-old that was all over national media. I mean, social media is actually useful here to try to find her. And I think lawyers get stuck in these rudimentary patterns of thinking where like, oh my God, like they learned from some lawyer when they were a new lawyer that social media is bad, and then they don't think about it creatively, and then they spend their whole careers just not posting. I mean, you could say that too about lawyer advertising, because I think a lot of lawyers lose opportunities to market themselves on social media because they have this sort of taboo belief that lawyers, quote, shouldn't be on social media.
I mean, I'm one of them.
I know you are.
Not that I believe that lawyers shouldn't be on social media. I'm just camera shy, so I'm trying to get into marketing myself.
That's my thing about you're camera shy, but you're not shy when we're like you're militant, you're angry, you yell, like you pissed off, like in the office. You walk into the office like you're DX coming into like WWE, and then you get it. And you've been at war too, like you've been in Afghanistan. you put a camera in front of you.
I get all shy, but I mean, none of that's true. I'm very calm, but I mean, I think like talking about the social media thing.
Yeah, what do you think about
with the clients? Yeah. My thing is like who's delivering the message, and do they really understand what the message is? And are we talking about pre-litigation? Are we talking about post-litigation?
But I also think, though, like because you're saying like, oh, they don't understand how the defense lawyer is going to do this and that. But I also think the further along we get in society and the more people are on social media, including jurors, I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is like I think a lot of jurors more and more will, if they see those tactics by a defense lawyer in a courtroom, I think people know that everyone's on social media. And I think that if you argue it correctly as the lawyer to the jury, you go, I mean, like, look at them trying to nitpick this post that our client put up because they're nitpicking. She's trying to live her life. She's on Facebook like half the world. And here they are nitpicking about this, that, and the other. She's not a lawyer. She's not here to prove. I am. But they got nothing to talk to you about. Nothing to defend themselves, so they're talking about Facebook. I mean, that's what I would say to the jury. But.
And obviously when you're dealing with most clients, they're not medical professionals. So in the context of medical malpractice, there's an easy way to rebut that as a lawyer, as a plaintiff's lawyer, to talk about, well, they're not a medical professional, and they're nitpicking, and this, all the things that you just mentioned. But all I'm proposing is that, again, not encourage, not take any position. If a client's on social media and they want to talk openly and they want to Facebook post, whatever it is, they can do that. It's only my job to first talk to them about the case, inform them about,
what are the risks? How could this be used against you? How will they try to use it against you?
Well, twofold. That, but also the substance of the case, like what the case is about, so that they understand. You inform them about, what's the actual case about, what's the medical care about, in the context of a medical malpractice case, for example.
What are some qualities of a client if you're representing somebody who's catastrophically injured or they're a family member of someone like that? I mean, obviously you're not asking someone to change their personality, and you can't change someone's personality, but what are some qualities or characteristics that a client can have that you think help their case or push their case forward, whether or not the client has any control over that. Because again, we are who we are.
Yeah, I think and I don't think lawyers really openly talk about this thing, but my sense is that a client, in a way, they're a victim, right? They're a victim, and I think that's an important aspect of all litigation is that raw sort of feeling that clients have, what they're going through, what they've been through, whether it's a family member or an actual injured person, right? And I think a lot of times what can hurt clients is indignation, being incensed and being angry, and that really coming across, for example, in a deposition, being argumentative with a defense attorney in a deposition. I just don't think those things look good for the client, because at the end of the day, the client's just really there to tell their story, how they've been harmed, and I think from a sympathetic perspective, from a jury looking at it, that's what garners sympathy. I think there's a risk with jurors that if they see a client who's getting into a tit for tat with a defense attorney or something, that to me it just doesn't look right. It looks odd.
Yeah, but don't you think that just to play devil's advocate, say somebody's harmed, they're wronged, they're misdiagnosed for 3 frickin' years with cancer, and now they're gonna die. Mm-hmm. They get up on the stand and they start crying and they're mad and they're pissed off, and they say to the jury, "I'm pissed off." I mean, you think the jury's going to view them as... I think if it's presented right, the jury's not going to... If it's proportionate to what happened to them, I don't think that the jury's going to have they might actually adopt that emotion with the client.
That's true, and I agree with that. But from an argumentative perspective, if a client is being argumentative, mm-hmm. So we've had clients on the stand that they'll be asked a question and they'll go, "Well, I don't agree with that."
Especially if they're being,
and they'll huff and puff, and there's no point really to the huffing and puffing other than they're just angry with defense counsel, and it's but so I don't think that necessarily looks good. But stating your how you feel, how this has impacted you, things of that nature. Yeah, I think that's an integral part of testimony for sure.
All right, brother. Thanks for being on the show. Since we're law partners, I'll see you in 4 seconds.
Yeah, dude, take your time. Just stay here all day. I'll do all the work. Just take your time.
And that's a wrap for this episode of City of Brotherly Law. I'm Tom Bosworth, reminding you that in Philly, we don't just practice law, we live it, breathe it, we fight for it every day. This city was built on grit and determination. That's exactly how we approach justice. That's how we approach cases. Join us next time for more straight talk and legal insights from the heart of Philadelphia. Until then, stay tough and keep it real, Philly.